Welcome to another episode of Roots and Relics. Today, we're going to be digging some roots. If you use a website like Ancestry.com to put your genealogy out there, you are constantly going to be contacted by people asking you questions about your family. Most of these people are actually cousins or friends of cousins. I also have a blog that I use for my genealogy called themedfords.wordpress.com, and I keep a lot of my information on there as well. Because I get so many emails related to nothing but genealogy, I have a dedicated email address just for handling that. I hate to admit it, but sometimes I go for long stretches of time without answering some of these emails. I finally started digging through some emails this weekend, and I had a few that were pretty interesting, but one in particular really stuck out to me. I got an email from a guy named Larry, and this is what he said.
Hi, I'm a friend of Johnny D. Buff. His grandmother married a H.E. Smith in 1920. This H.E.'s father was Adolphus Smith, mother Sarah. Bertha had two boys by H.E. Their names were Harley and Charlie Smith. The H.E. Smith is listed as 29 on the marriage certificate, born 1891. It would have been easy for a man to have been married to two women at the same time back in the 20s. My own great-grandfather, they say, would be gone for months at a time. If you could be of any assistance, I sure would appreciate it. Larry.
It's kind of interesting. Honestly, I wasn't exactly sure who H.E. Smith was at first, but I did recognize Adolphus Smith as one of my great-great-great-grandfathers. When he said something about being married to two women at the same time, that kind of intrigued me. That's an email worth responding to. But first, let's take a look and see what I have in my genealogy.
Okay, so my great-grandmother is a lady named Annie Smith, and her dad is Thomas Smith, and his father is Henry Adolphus Smith. So let's start there. Henry Adolphus Doc Smith, as he was called, was born in 1848, died in 1916 in Oconaluftee, Swain County, North Carolina. Here's my great-grandfather, Thomas Smith, and right down here is his brother who is 6 years younger than him, named Henry Edward Smith. This must be the H.E. Smith in question. So here's my third great uncle, Henry Edward Smith, born 1884, died in 1962 in Weaverville in Buncombe County, North Carolina.
Now here's the thing. Henry Edward Smith was married to a lady named Ernestine Honeycutt in 1902. They were married to each other the rest of their lives. In fact, they both died in the same year, 1962. They had 3 kids together. 2 daughters named Anna and Lola, although in the mountains they would pronounce that Annie and Loli, and then a son named William. My first thought was, okay dude, how about get your facts together first? Do you actually have any proof that this happened?
He sent this email to me in October of last year, by the way, so I'm responding to him literally 7 months later. Sorry for taking so long to respond. So you are saying that H.E. Smith, who was married to Ernestine Honeycutt, had another wife named Bertha and had 2 boys with her. Do you have a marriage certificate for this H.E. Smith and Bertha? And birth records and death certificates for their children?
I did a super quick search on Ancestry.com, so I wasn't really able to find a whole lot of information. So I wanted to see if he had this marriage certificates and if he could send it to me. Surprisingly, this is what he had to say.
I do have one. I will try and get it for you. Hi, Jonathan. Let me know what you think. Larry.
Okay, let's take a look and see what this says.
State of North Carolina, Caldwell County, Office of Register of Deeds, August 5th, 1920. To any ordained minister or any religious denomination or any justice of the peace of said county, H.E. Smith having applied to me for a license for the marriage of himself of Caldwell County, North Carolina, aged 29 years, color white, the son of Adolphus Smith and Sarah Smith, the father now dead, the mother dead, and Bertha Buff of Caldwell County, aged 33 years old, white, daughter of Malton Klein and Ellen Klein, the father living, the mother living, residents of Caldwell County, North Carolina.
And then further down the document, it looks like they were married by a justice of the peace.
I, J.A. Starnes, a justice of the peace, united in matrimony, H.E. Smith and Bertha Buff. The parties licensed above on the 5th day of August, 1920, at Granite Falls, North Carolina, in Lovelady Township, in said county, according to law.
Lovelady Township. That's really interesting. Lovelady Township is essentially Granite Falls, North Carolina, which is actually where I grew up. And my family's ancestral lands are in the present-day Great Smoky Mountain National Park. So if Henry and Bertha were married in August of 1920, let's take a look at what the 1920 census says for where Henry was living at the time.
So this is the 1920 census for Henry Edward Smith. He was living in Oconaluftee, Swain County, North Carolina, which is now encompassed inside of the Great Smoky National Forest. You can see right here, he's living right next door to his brother Thomas E. Smith, who is my great-great-grandfather. In 1920, my great-grandmother Annie Smith, who went on to marry a Medford, was 16 years old at the time. And you can see clearly, plain as day, Henry Edward Smith, married to Ernestine, wife.
There was quite a distance between Oconaluftee, North Carolina, and Lovelady Township. About 122 miles to be exact. I guess if you're going to have a secret family, that's not a bad idea. I'm still a little skeptical though.
Now, I don't have a picture of Henry Edward Smith, but his brother, Thomas Smith, my great-great-grandfather, lived right next door to him. Here's a look at Thomas Smith's house, which, like I said, is now in present-day Great Smoky Mountain National Park. Here's a picture from 1910 of Thomas Smith and his family. Thomas is right here towards the right, and then my great-grandmother Annie is right here in the middle. Now here's a photo that was taken right around 1920 of Thomas Smith and his family. Again, this is not Henry, but I wanted to give you kind of a glimpse of what Henry's life may have looked like, and he probably looked pretty similar to his brother Thomas, my great-great-grandfather.
So my next question is, who was Birdie?
I decided to take a look at the 1920 census and see where Birdie was living at the time. Now, Birdie Buff was living as a widow with her mother and father in Lovelady Township in Caldwell County, North Carolina. In 1920, she also had a 13-year-old son named Henry and a 10-year-old daughter named Johnsy.
The next question I want to ask was, why was Henry in Caldwell County to begin with? There's actually a logical explanation.
Here are some clues as to why Henry was in Caldwell County. Number one, his parents were from Caldwell County. Actually, they were married in Caldwell County. Henry was born there. He had lots of relatives still living there. He had aunts, uncles, and plenty of cousins that lived in Caldwell County.
Caldwell County is where my family moved after eminent domain took their land from the Great Smoky Mountain National Forest. Having a secret family 122 miles away makes a lot of sense. But having a secret family where you have so many relatives, that doesn't really make a lot of sense. Did Harley and Charlie really exist?
So here's the 1930 census for Birdie, or Roberta. She's living not too far away from Caldwell County, right next door in Catawba County, in a city called Newton. And check this out. Her last name is Smith. And there they are, Charlie and Harley, both 9 years old.
Huh. I guess Charlie and Harley were probably twins. They're both 9 years old and they have the classic twin rhyming names.
Now what's really interesting here is her marital status says married. Her last name is Smith. But what's unusual is her husband is not listed as living in this household.
Wow. Maybe this guy Larry is right. Let's take a look at the 1940 census.
Okay, so in 1940, her name is not listed as Smith. It's listed as Buff. But I still see an M here for married. And there they are, Charlie and Harley, sons, 18 and 18.
Now, one kind of weird thing about the M that's listed here.
The M for married has a line through it as if it's marked out, and then there's a number 7.
I've never seen that before in a census record. I wonder if that really means anything. Okay, I found a pretty cool explanation on Google.
Even when a marital status of married was recorded, clerks were instructed to interline the M and replace it with 7 if no spouse was included in the household. If you find a 7 in the marital status column, or an M crossed out and a 7 penciled in, then look for the spouse in another household.
Interesting. The circumstantial evidence here is really, really convincing. Everything seems to corroborate what Larry's telling me. Let's just take a look at Henry's situation as of the 5th of August, 1920, when he married Roberta.
He's 36 years old. He is 3 weeks shy of being married to Ernestine for 18 years. He has a daughter named Annie who is 17. He has a daughter named Loli who is 6. And he has a son named William who is just 2 years old. He's working as a blacksmith at a lumber company. And he lives in Oconaluftee, North Carolina, in Swain County.
Perhaps the most astonishing part is 9 months after they were married, Harley and Charlie, the twins, were born. This spawns so many questions. Did Roberta ever know about Henry's wife? Did Henry's wife, Ernestine, ever know about Roberta, Harley, and Charlie? Did Henry and Ernestine's children, Anna, Lola, and William, ever know about any of this?
So right here is a marriage certificate for Charlie Smith. He was getting married August 27th, 1947 in Charlotte, North Carolina at 26 years old. So he's listed as the son of H.E. Smith and Bertha Smith. The father deceased, the mother living.
Is he listing his father as deceased, metaphorically, because he may as well be? Or is he listing his father as deceased because he actually believes his father's dead? Another question I have is, do the descendants of these two families know that the other exists? I'm going to get some answers for you guys. I've actually been able to track down some descendants of both sides. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to contact the families and approach them about this situation delicately and see what they have to say about it. Be on the lookout for a follow-up video as we help solve this puzzle. If you like these style of videos and want me to do more, hit the like button. And don't forget to subscribe so that you can get little notifications every single time I release a new video. Thank you for watching this episode of Roots and Relics.